Well, good morning. Welcome to today's webinar on ESG impact to your business with Jarkko Hämäläinen, Chief Sustainability Officer at InfraKit. My name is Mike Wardle. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at CEN, and it's my role today to chair the session, moderate the questions towards the end. And the first thing to say is a big thank you to our sponsors. We're very lucky at CEN and the FS Club to have a range of sponsors who enable us through their generous support to run this webinar series and other events, and to range quite widely over the questions of economics, finance, science, history, you name it. The program today is fairly simple, very short introduction from me, and then we'll have around about a 20-minute presentation from Jarkko as our keynote, and then there'll be time for Q&A towards the end. If you haven't used the GoToWebinar system before, the way to put in a question or a comment is to find the question tab on the dashboard on screen, type in your question, and that will come to us to field during the Q&A session. And please do put your comments and questions in at any points during the presentation. If you have a good idea or a thought, get it down so that we don't miss it. Just to say that we will share contact details with those of you who ask questions with Jarkko, so if there's a need for any follow-up discussion, that can be made easier. The session is being recorded today, and so if you want to go back and refresh yourself as to Jarkko's presentation, or you want to share the session with friends and colleagues who might be interested, the link to the recording will be up on our website in around about 24 hours, and that'll be available for you to share. So that's all, I think, by way of housekeeping and introduction. It's a great pleasure to introduce Jarkko Hämäläinen, with more than 20 years global background, including with Nokia, Hewlett-Packard, and the CEO of startups, and consulting with many very large companies. And really looking forward, Jarkko, to what I know has been a long progress of development in your thinking around ESG, and really looking forward to your presentation. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So it's a privilege to be here, and I need to share a little bit my story, because my dad is actually a construction guru, and he has close to 60 years experience from construction. And once we were sharing or even comparing kind of my experiences from Nokia, Amazon, General Electric, Hewlett-Packard, and many of the construction top companies like Canary Wharf, British Land, Wanda, and MR, just to name a few. And I was asking my dad, like, what has been the biggest innovation during your career? And that time he was still smoking a cigarette, and he was taking a couple of kind of breath and saying that, my son, you remember how the toilet used to be like this, and nowadays it's just pushing the button. So that was a message. I, of course, a little bit was laughing, but taking it so seriously that one day I will give my kind of best competence for the construction in a form of digitalization and ESG. And very same story happened in the beginning of InfraKit. Then Teemu Kivimäki, CEO and founder, was looking for master thesis, and it was not his dad, but it was the professor from Oulu, Finland, like our local Silicon Valley, that why don't you focus to infra construction and enable like digitalization and data moving to and from machines on site. And then that was done, and the first customer, it was called Testia, like a government-owned like highways company in Finland. So they started digital like a journey 13 years ago, and they got actually acquired 2 years ago by a huge company called Colas. And then I joined. I wanted to understand what was the customer impact when we have been focusing to build digital and ESG services. And we went through like pretty much talking directly to the customer key personnel and saying like before digitalization and ESG and after. So how can you see a change? And the first answer was we win all the projects we want. And They actually won 10 out of 10 projects, all the big ones, all the meaningful ones. And then I said, "But wow, that's like you became number one." What else happened? Like have you found any other when you are able to solve the actual ESGs? So what else happens that you are winning the projects? And the answer from customer was, we are able to make it 20% under budget. And I thought that 20%, good or bad. So being in a different industries, and I had to Google that, and infra construction margins are between 4 to 5%. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. And then after that, I wanted to put all the effort that can we prove from ESG point of view, like what all environmental, social governance, sustainable and CO2 reduction impact we have if we utilize digital platforms and we can have real-time ESG actuals. So that was one of the biggest findings, that the outcome was very positive. In a worst case, without even demanding 5.6% less CO2 emissions. But how it was done? It was get rid of waste, get rid of unnecessary movement, because when everything is digital, everybody knows what's happening, when to do your part. So it's not a rocket science, it happens automatically. And then I first time realized that efficiency and sustainability can be hand in hand. And then that story continued. So if we can get the next slide, please. So after 6,000 projects, so we wanted to kind of understand what else is ESG than CO2 reduction. How should we take it from business? Is it like a big advantage, or is it some mandatory thing like doing kind of a corporate sustainability reports, or is it just doing a sustainability report every year and look good? And we continued asking, especially from owners like municipalities, cities, governments in Europe, like, do you take ESG seriously? And of course, from private owners and the main contractors. And the first question I got, like, do you take ESG seriously? There was executive from Hilton, Mr. Xavier Walker, was saying to me that, Jarkko, money doesn't move if you cannot prove ESG. And then that was a couple of years ago. I liked the answer, but couldn't understand it fully. Nowadays, I might understand it. And of course, I was asking explanation. And Xavier was explaining that as an owner, when you demand ESG, so the engineers and design guys and architects are involving ESG criteria into plans. And that goes to main contractor, subcontractor. And you will be getting premium quality on time. So your asset value is higher. If you compare getting delayed, so it's not only more CO2, it's also losing money and losing reputation. If you need to go all the way to fight about invoices or quality or whatever, so it actually becomes like a court case and your asset value is lower. So that was huge. And that's why I want to open our minds. Like when we just look at ESG, from one angle, it's not enough. So on top of the reports, there are deadlines, European Union taxonomy, there is UN kind of sustainable development goals. There's a lot of calculation how much CO2 equivalent footprint our companies have, how about the handprint via customers, how we are impacting, huge green deal and hell of a lot of good money available, how to get it, where will be penalties, where will be carbon credits. There's much better funding available when we can fulfill the green funding and green funds. There's really much European level and the country level grants for the kind of every kind of efficiency optimization using AI, digitalization. There's like really much action with the best consortiums to zero emission. And there's, of course, all the dynamics, all the kind of transparent kind of governing and showing transparently all the good practices. And then there is valuation to your own company and to your own work and competitive advantage. So just an example. So company I'm working for 4 years ago, valuation was somewhere between 4 and 5 million euros. And last spring, it was closer to 200 million euros. So in a few years, ecosystem neutral platform for ESG services and for infra construction, valuation has been rising so rapidly. So how it's possible if we wouldn't have this ESG trend, people demanding ESG, and we are enabling it? So I would say that 80–90% off without ESG. So it's so huge the impact. And top of that, everybody who is manufacturing is EPDs, environmental product declarations. And they are local level, like every country can have a different calculation and can demand the own EPDs. So that's one system actually to control the kind of import-export business inside Europe and also globally. So this is how I understand the ESG, like a bit wider. And on top of it, there is a lot of social impact, like more empowerment, less harassing impact when building and kind of opening roads and kind of digging tunnels and everything. So much less impact to the people who are living around. And when you do it faster, so it has always multiple times, like budget and CO2 reduction and environmental people harassment much less. So every time is better. So this is how I see the ESG. This is how I want to expand the thinking. If we can get the next slide, please. So then comes ecosystem neutral versus working with somebody. So how valuable is to be ecosystem neutral? So when I used to work for Nokia, we were almost ecosystem neutral, but there was some other ecosystems like Ericsson, for example. So from InfraKit point of view, we wanted to increase the maturity of digitalization and all ESG services for whole value chain. It means that you need to play with everybody. You need to remain neutral. Even there are very tempting offers coming from the big players, and they want, of course, maybe to play a bit more with them. But if we can take all the data, so what is the outcome in the whole value chain? There is all the planning, design data, all the building information model data, machine control, which is in infra construction, ultimate, like two-way IQ communication to giving the latest models, getting exactly what's happening, what are the machines doing, how much fuel they are consuming, and so on. Then with the application, rest of the heavy trucks, lot of data we can show in a dashboards, very accurate land surveying data, health, safety, environment, quality data, common data environment data, and then like drones and any reality capture data. So together, it's pretty much no one can fool you because there is so much data that makes you more accurate. And now you have a single source of truth, and you can share that single source of truth. And what might be the outcome when we just have this one and we don't need to do anything else? So if we get the next slide, please. So during the story, what happened to our customer, and they got acquired. So Destia valuation, it used to be highest before InfraKit, 145 million, and they got acquired by 500 million. So that's 355 million valuation increased, and it already happened 2 summers ago. And a regular infra project, it's about 20% as an average under the budget. Then you just have this data, like single source of truth. And not only on-time delivery, our 150 last projects has been 80% ahead of schedule. So there are several highways, railways, trams, airport expansions, harbors. There's even solar power plants and wind farms has been 80% ahead of schedule. And then minimum 5.6% reduced CO2. But if you take this under budget, so it's pretty much equal, get rid of waste, get rid of free doing and doing wrong things. So it's 20% impact also to CO2 reduction. And if it's ready on time or especially 80% ahead of schedule, so it has even bigger impact. So this first two hasn't been calculated. It's just a very direct impact with efficiency, what is minimum 5.6. So it's quite significant when we know amounts of infra projects. And this is different in infra. If we need to go to real estate, like vertical building, the hammers and saws don't have this IQ like machine control, what the expensive infra machines have. And we have applications for the heavy trucks, so even that doesn't exist in the real estate. So in the construction side, infra construction is much better. But of course, even in infra construction, there is a lot to improve. For example, in handover to use and maintenance, but make a digital handover instead of papers. If we get the next slide, and that will be the most secret slide. So these are the maturity steps. Then talking with really smart people like you guys who know what's happening in ESG, who has a lot of background, and I claim that, hey, we have been doing 6,000 projects. I'm a third time traveling to every country and metropole in Europe to understand ESG maturities. And then I say that this is the impact we have been able to prove. So customers are asking, okay, you know how to get there, and you have done it with Destia and many others. So what are the steps we need to do? And these are the secret steps, how to become number one in an industry. First one is digitalization. It needs two-way cloud and standardization, that you get the data in right format, and you have all the data from all these integrations, what is relevant. Second level is what you do with the data. It's like changing your processes to model-based construction. And that's when you get minimum 10 and normally 20% impact already into cost savings. So it's quite much when we talk about like originally 93 billion pounds HS2. So that impact would be in that what like enormous. And this we have been proven, I said, thousands of times. So it's happening, just moving to model-based construction. Little bit training needed, and we even have a customer success consultants to ensure it. The third level is you need to scale, but need to scale digitally. So that is like taking this new way of working and right data into use in rolling it out to all the projects. That happens very efficiently when it's digital. If it's not digital, so it couldn't happen, but much bigger impact. You can multiply by project number of projects, this 20% impact already there. And then you go beyond, because everybody is learning. It's like an iterative dance, how we can make even bigger impact in a cost savings, efficiency, demanding low carbon materials, better energy sources like biofuel and electrification in the machines. So that's how we can get much bigger impact. At the same time, on the fourth level, when we already have all the data, we can set the thresholds, we can follow the thresholds real time, not afterwards in Excel. If asking from main contractors and subcontractors, what are your ESG, what are your CO2s from the machines, and if that is done from kind of buying fuel or something like that, so I don't believe it should be what the machines are really using, and that gives the right facts and the kind of right values to compare, especially when we go to carbon credits, how much good we are doing and getting money back. So it must be always the actuals, and these actuals are on time, real time, and it's much different than doing it afterwards. And you can also look like a backtrack, like, okay, how much it was consuming, what was the cost of doing this part of the infra project. So you can learn and utilize even AI on top of that in the next bidding, like how to win the biddings and how to compare as an owner that which bidding is realistic and which are not. And then always control the ultimate CO2s and the rest of the ESG criteria, because it will be in a dashboard every day. You can look that and react on time, not afterwards. So that's called the secret formula, and that's why the ecosystem neutral platforms and that ESG development has been really successful lately, and this should be very valuable information. So that's all from a presentation side today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jarkko. A really good overview of ways in which data-driven systems can help. I just wondered, you've worked across the whole of the European network. What variation do you see in the commitment of countries and the way in which ESG is developing in the EU?
So that's really great question. I have been now 2 years, especially trying to understand the ESG maturity in comparing the countries to each other and even within the value chain. So Nordics are pretty good. So we have taken BIM very seriously. But if we compare the government part, so London and UK is the highest because there is so much competence in the government part to demand, but how it turns to kind of how to say money and grants and actions. So that's a bit better in Finland and in Sweden. And in Germany, there is really much government support. We talk about over 80 billion euros for ESG activities, but no one knows how to apply them. So it's like when it doesn't deploy, the impact doesn't happen. And very lately, where Poland has been rising. So 1 year ago, Poland used to be against the ESG. And government changed, and they have really high quality ministers now in a climate and close to the European Union. So they are climbing these steps right now the fastest. There is ideal location, really much money coming outside, a lot of infra projects. So they want this impact, and they want to do it like a sustainable way. So that's very positive surprise. And we have done one of the best projects in Hungary and also in Czech. So these I couldn't guess. You would ask this 2-3 years ago, I would never guess that they are so high mature in the market. And just yesterday, from an executive of Business Finland, I saw that Finland was #1 in ESG maturity. So that was also my finding. But then it goes in a value chain, like government plays really important role and owners, like that's like a head of a snake, and too much different, but that's equalizing now. Always the highest mature has been architects, like last 30 years playing with 3D. This is a little bit kidding, like having good salaries, good life, and also want to respect the next generation, so doing it sustainable way. So that's more normal for the architects. But when it goes to construction site, so before InfraKit, it was zero. And now when InfraKit as a neutral platform, it has taken the infra construction to very high maturity, but it has demand. You should have machine control in the devices. If that doesn't exist, so you don't get that accurate data and that accurate guidance. So for example, in Finland, machine control is 100%. And even top 7 cities in Finland has ESG actual as a requirement that you can even work for the cities. So everybody in the value chain, also subcontractors, kind of knows how to do it now. So we need to collect this data. But then the biggest surprise, in use and maintenance, the maturity drops. There's like, let's say 3 projects were handover out of 6,000, which I know has happened digitally. It's still on a paper and it's outdated immediately. And one of the biggest influence in very big end-to-end game of a kind of a CO2, for example, is use and maintenance, because it's very long time and comparing the couple of years construction time. So this is something we can improve really much, and we get really good impact in a sustainability point of view. And they are first ones now making the real handovers and utilizing the latest information. And imagine when everything is documented really well, you know where the electricity, water, data lines are going, where the metro lines are going exactly. So nobody will make a mistake when everything is accurate. But nowadays, one of the big problems is that they are definitely not accurate and mistakes happen. And then it's a water pipeline in London broken by excavator. So there might be quite much water down in the metro tunnels and so on. So this accuracy in the next round will be automatically increasing the maturity of the whole value chain. And we have only first 2 cases in Helsinki. The next infra project has been like 1/3 because everything was correct in the beginning. Everything was right. And if you compare real life without having digital kind of a very good GPS positioning, so they are not even close. So very interesting findings, and personally very surprised about the differences.
Thank you very much. Martin Kemper-Smith has asked about the CO2 reductions, saying you're achieving 5% reductions at the moment. Is there potential to go much further, or is this hard to achieve?
Wow. So then we got a really good investment from a Finnish climate fund, and they demanded roadmap from us how to go to carbon zero in a whole infra construction. And there are a lot of cities who are nowadays claiming and kind of how to say committing to zero emission by 2030. I want to understand exactly if it's now 5.6% as an average, how much we need to do every year. And it's not going to be easy. There's not too many years to develop and deploy into whole value chain. That it will be 10 to 15% per year development needed to really reach 2030. But 2035 is what office on, and it's more doable. But how to do it? One part is efficiency. Let's say 20% I have proven many times, 25 best cases bit over 30, 35 with efficiency. But you cannot do more with efficiency. But when you demand materials like low carbon concrete or recyclable steel or green steel, that's like roughly 50% in end-to-end game impact, like really huge. So demand materials, but make sure that these companies can deliver them on time and they are fitting to all the other criteria. Then the last part is energy sources. We need electrification. As you saw, like a Volvo cars did 1 month ago, the last turbo diesel car, and no more with traditional petrol cars are coming. So it's only 100% electric. Same happens in infra construction, and that has roughly about 30% end-to-end impact. So when we get all these, we can get carbon zero, but it means that all in a value chain has been deployed to this level. And that's why 2030 I see very challenging, but all the good ones have started. And as I say, when you do sustainability, you get efficiency. You became number one. And it's also really good in the marketing after these under budget, on time delivery or ahead of delivery stories. So that's why I see it very, very important. But 100% on that task. I also cooperate. I'm a chairman in a zero emission infra consortium. Especially the person who was asking it is very welcome to this consortium, because that's where we do like what are the concrete actions, how much you can demand nowadays, how about next year targets and so on, and we cooperate with owners very close by.
And I think Shane Drinian's asked a question which is in the same area as really, is asking whether the emission reductions that we're currently seeing, are they really coming from process efficiency so far? And are there real examples now of emission reductions coming from adopting more sustainable practices?
If there are no digital platform to prove it, I would say most likely not. If there is a really good digital platform to get the actuals all the way from machines and machine movement, then they come from efficiency. Of course, a little bit if you are really good in planning in advance, like minimizing the logistics movements and optimizing everything, like where you get your kind of masses and that. But in a real life, something gets changed, other machines are waiting, wrong material is coming and redoing. So we need to get rid of that to get real efficiency impact. It's not even close to 20 if we don't get the real on-site, like situational awareness and single source of truth. Then it's doable. So I have seen that quite a couple of 100 times. That's why I know what it is. But with the good help of planning, so it gives better opportunity to get this 20% efficiency, which is like, it will be the new standard soon, and it should be demanded. So it's a very right path.
Thank you very much. Hugh Purser is online, has asked a question, and he said the discussion seems to relate mainly to new build for infrastructure. Is there any development in analysing and improving current building and infrastructure stock?
Wow. Okay, that's a tough one. So yes, it can be done, but if we go like there are bridges which are like buildings also. So if we can recycle the materials on site, so they paid the penalty already in CO2 emissions. And if we can do it on a way that it's not polluting and it's efficient and no logistics needed, so it's ultimately efficient. And now we have this material game, this 50% end-to-end impact game. So that's marvelous. But if these materials doesn't exist, if they are somehow like even poisonous or something, so you know which direction CO2 emission goes in that case when we need to drive it very far away. So there are different kind of cases. There's good and really bad cases, what I know from that angle. And of course, there is existing when we are redoing any infra in a big cities. When knowing the London, there's several layers on top of it. So we need to be able to utilize everything we can and minimize this, but it's mandatory. If it's bad material, so we need to handle it on the right way. But we also need to consider the water like rivers and the waterways. So it's part of the ESG as equal as like a highway or the tunnel or the kind of more common infra cases. And together these must be planned on a way that we can kind of how to say, make it more efficient, make it like a CO2 reductions for also for existing ones, because otherwise they don't change and we cannot get the targets if we cannot touch the old kind of assets also. If it's only new ones, how to become carbon zero, so it's impossible. That's why it's very big part of the game. And excellent question, very good thinking.
Thank you very much. I had a thought, which is how transferable the learning that you've been through in infrastructure may be to other sectors. And you know, where would your imagination take you in terms of how AI and data-driven ESG might extend to other sectors?
Oh, wow. Okay, one of my favorite thinking. So I would like to help the rest of the real estate. As I said, there's so much assets there. The value chain is almost same from owners and designers, and they are main contractors. But on site, the difference for the infra comparing to like vertical buildings is very different because of its machine and machine control. So the maturity difference is ultimate. But in the use and maintenance, actually, the traditional construction has higher maturity. There is more digital handovers. So thanks to demanding and doing a good job. So if we could utilize like best from both parts, that would be the very ideal case. Then something very interesting. I was following 20 years the digital maturity of all different industries. 19 times the built environment was the lowest digital maturity. Then I just learned that infrastructure is 79% of greenhouse gases, because energy pipelines are also moving there. So there's nothing bigger if it's 79% of kind of doing harm. So any good we do in infra construction has bigger impact, because multiplayer is so huge. And that is like bringing the infra construction now top of the ESG. Like, wow, you are doing so much good. And as I said, we used to be the last, 19 out of 20, and nobody was asking how you do digitalization. And now 6 cases I have been keynote speaker. Every time our impact has been the biggest. And truly with 5.6%. Like people, you can see sometimes 80%, 90%, even 100% reductions. So don't believe they are like in a silo, not in end-to-end. So it's not possible to do nowadays. 5.6% end-to-end impact is so huge that the best people in a climate fund who compare these impacts between the industries. So they wanted to provide us more funding and enable bigger impact because of 5.6. And for me, it was very small number when it was first time calculated. And then everything was signed. They actually revealed that the impact with your 5.6 means every euro coming to your ecosystem neutral platform, every single euro is 13 kilos less CO2 equivalent. Every single euro. So you are actually making the better world. And that was like, wow, 5.6 is so much, because it's like a handprint impact that way. So definitely there's a lot to give to other industries. And this time it's really nice to be on top of wave It's like again be like working for Nokia back in the days.
Just turning to, you mentioned during your presentation the fact that funding is easier to get when you have good ESG practices. Could you comment a bit about that, and again whether there's some differences between different markets?
Yeah, so this asset value is obvious, like in the comparison with ESG and without ESG, the asset value is huge different. There's so much green funds available, and they don't just give money; they need to prove. So how to prove ESG? You need data points. You need to show like we are capable of doing it, and it's very difficult for the company. So if we need to go back into papers which are outdated or lost, so it's not possible to prove. It needs really much quality points in every part of the value chain that owner has been demanding this kind of ESG criteria, showing the actuals, how well the efficiency, how well the materials, how well the energy sources has been fulfilling it. So that's really something. And then one more thing, part of the previous question with AI. So we are starting. So I'm heading the new opportunity to study the AI like impact to carbon zero in the industry. So now this is of course like we are guesstimating that it will be significant, but exactly how much? Because AI loves data. And now we have really much data from different sources. So it will take away of mistake. It will share you that you cannot demand this because it's not doable. It will give the better kind of impact of pricing, and it will kind of give the owner like ultimate knowledge for sure. But what else it will do for everybody in a value chain? I would say really much. We will definitely see, but it will happen during this and next years, not after 10 years. AI is already here, and we are utilizing AI and more during next year for all the different kind of use cases, for internal optimization, for customer impact, for the owners to kind of make any infra projects into phases for comparison and so on. And this is what we know now. If you ask this next year, my answer will be much better.
Thank you. Yes, it certainly is a developing landscape. Hupers has come with a further question asking to what extent your projections take into account climate change, kind of either modest projections or the big projections. He's just noted The Economist this week ran a big article on housing and climate change, pointing to the potential for massive valuation falls as climate change really hits home.
Yeah, housing itself is 40%, as said, infrastructure end-to-end is 79%. So I said there's nothing bigger. So if you only focus to energy sources, like how to produce electricity, for example, so that's maximum 40%. So you need to move the energy. So it doesn't work if they are only in the plants. And all the logistics, railways, harbors, airports, highways. So keeping the economics moving, infrastructure is playing the biggest impact. And it's definitely both like how to now make the infrastructure more sustainable. So it will need all these functionalities from an ecosystem neutral platform, but also into user maintenance phase. So we need to take that user maintenance phase more seriously and kind of continue there. There might be 30 to 100 years impact, significant impact in that part. And as I said, I have seen 3 cases now doing it pretty much right, and too many cases not yet there. So one of the biggest improvement will happen there.
And Shane Drinian's come back to ask, what emerging technologies do you believe are the most promising from an ESG perspective? We've talked about AI, but are there other?
Yeah, AI is the next biggest thing for sure. I said there's so much data, so AI needs data, but it's also like there will be very many different kind of use cases, and everything will be optimized. Like telematics of the machines will be optimized, material planning and movement will be more accurate. So it will be very easy to make bidding in a couple of years in infra construction because you can compare to 10,000 projects that day, and so all the gray areas will be disappearing. Everybody knows the single source of truth kind of before, during, and after. All the good guys will get kind of promotions. It's actually happening now in the cities in Finland. So there's even one lady who has got 2 promotions during our cooperation already, because it's so positive PR. So AI is very easy kind of next thing happening, and we will see many formats. But I would also say that everything, like if you compare Formula Ones, they have really good sensors. Excavators has also, but these sensors have been partly built in a factory, and the machine control has been like after installed. So I can say that within 2-3 years they will be pre-installed in the factory. So it cannot be something afterwards. And I thought that it's a small business. So we talk about all the top 3 companies in machine control are over €1 billion revenue companies. So it's very serious business in that part. But that was the part who gave IQ. So earlier this question was machine control. Now it's done. So there's some optimization left, and now we utilize AI to make it better. So it is possible that infra construction will show an example of zero emission to all the other industries. It's very possible right now because it's very high mature value chain.
Well, thank you very much. We're coming to the end of the session. So just a last question, I think, from me. You mentioned the impact, for example, of the change of government in Poland. How far do you think is ESG development and climate change adaptation and transition going to be driven really by government action?
So the best governments are demanding it, but when it gets deployed via cities very well. So as I said, 7 out of 7 top cities in Finland has 100% ESG requirements. So you cannot get in if you cannot do the actual ESGs. And all these projects has been ahead of schedule and the highest quality. And getting certifications, BREEAM and LEED Platinum, so it's like pushing enter when you have already all the quality points in a system in the right format. So we actually learned this from a huge Nordic constructor who is working globally, especially also in UK, that they say, thanks guys, like it used to be very difficult to get certifications, and nowadays there's all the data in your platform, so I just need to push enter. And it was not original use case, it was just a smart customer using it for the right purpose. So I believe that this is all awareness. This is now competitive advantage between of us. And then it's 20% under budget. Who wouldn't like it, especially as a CEO? So it's a really significant impact. So we need to do now this what we have, and then together from 20% all the way to 50, 2030, and then to zero emission by 2035. So even via neutral platform, we cannot do it alone. We need owners, we need subcontractors, we need most likely some AI and technological providers and everybody in this value chain. But the outcome is going to be really good for us and really good for the next generation.
Well, thank you very much. A really good note to end on. It just remains me to wrap up. So first of all, my thanks again to our sponsors who are very generous in their support of our webinar program and our other activity. Coming up in future events, on Thursday, a modern interpretation of the art of fan making and its contribution to climate change and the energy transition. Next Monday, governance to prosper, the importance of integrity, values and policy. And next Tuesday, the launch of the next edition of our Global Green Finance Index, Index 13. So a round of thanks. First of all, thank you to you, the audience, for your attendance today and your attention. And I hope it's been a useful session for you. But a big thanks to Jarkko. It's been a fascinating run over how you can change an industry when you ask the right questions and apply the right data. So thank you very much all. We'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.